Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Whoop Podcast. We sit down with top athletes, researchers, scientists, and more. Learn what the best in the world are doing to perform at their peak. I'm your host, Will Ahmed, founder and CEO of Whoop. Spring is the perfect time to get your health and fitness back on track. A reminder, our spring sale starts Monday, April 15th, and you can join Whoop and save 10% on membership for a limited time only. On this week's episode, Whoop Global Head of Human Performance, Principal Scientist Kristen Holmes is joined by Coach Lori Locust. Coach Lo is entering her sixth season coaching in the NFL and her second season with the Titans. Prior to arriving in Tennessee, she spent 4 seasons as assistant defensive line coach at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. With the Buccaneers' victory in Super Bowl LV, Coach Lo became one of the first 2 women on an NFL coaching staff to win a Super Bowl. Coach Lo has been working in football since 2008. Kristen and Coach Lo discuss how Coach Lo prepares for the season and adapts throughout the year, how she got her shot coaching in football, getting her first full-time job in the NFL, winning a Super Bowl with Tom Brady and the Bucs, her coaching style and her definition of success, shedding the stigma of ticking a box, and barriers for women in sport. If you're thinking about joining Whoop, you can sign up for free for 30 days. That's at whoop.com, free trial. If you have a question you want to see answered on the podcast, email us, podcast@whoop.com. Call us 508-443-4952. Here is Kristen Holmes with Tennessee Titans defensive coach Lori Locust.
Coach Lori Locust has spent over 16 years in the game of American football and has risen from the high school level to Super Bowl champion. Coach Lo is entering her 6th season in the NFL, her second as a defensive assistant and quality control coach for the Tennessee Titans. Prior to her time in the NFL with the Titans and Bucs, Coach Lo spent time working as an assistant defensive line coach for the Birmingham Iron of the Alliance of American Football during the league's inaugural season. In 2018, she served as a defensive line coaching intern for the Baltimore Ravens during the team's training camp, and from 2016 to 18, worked as a defensive line linebackers coach and co-special teams coordinator of the Lehigh Valley Steelhawks of the National Arena League. She also spent some time as an assistant coach at her prep alma mater, a semi-pro team from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and even had a 4-year career in women's semi-professional football. Coach Lo, welcome to the Whoop Podcast.
Thanks, Kristen. Very, very honored to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, I'm so happy you could join us. Of course, there's a lot happening in the world of football right now.
Yeah.
Tell us some of the things that you're preparing in the moment.
Yeah. So, obviously the cycle, when people talk about the off season, there really is no off season, right? Because
No.
we don't just show up on Sundays and work, which is also another misconception. But no, so, the draft is coming up. So we've been, reviewing college draft eligible players for the last month or so. Free agency just got done. Obviously, there's been a lot of trades that have happened. And because there's a new staff now in Tennessee, we're rewriting the playbook. We're, getting all the prep work together. We're, meeting as coaching staff to make sure everybody's on the same page. So this is sort of the ramp up period every year that you take a look at the season ahead, take a look at the players that you know that you have and the potential for the pieces that are going to be coming in. And now you have to try and make everything as fluid as possible, because once spring ball hits, you roll until the summer break. And then once that's over, we're back for training camp, and, then you're in the thick of it until hopefully late February the following year.
When you're coming up with your defensive scheme for the new season, like how much innovation is happening there? Like how much, or is it really pretty standard? Everyone, you're just kind of picking from just this bucket of schemes.
We always talk about football is a language and everybody speaks a different dialect, right? So when you do have new coaches come in, and we have a new defensive coordinator that has come in, and he's bringing in a whole new system. So everything's called things slightly differently. Things are viewed slightly differently. But what's interesting about the NFL is that coaches normally have come from another program. Maybe they've come from 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And so when they put their schemes together, they're trying to take the best pieces out of each that might make sense. Again, knowing our players, knowing the coaches that they have on staff, can they, teach it in the same voice? Can we be cohesive and
Mm.
everybody buy into this new defense? I'll just use defense as an example. But the NFL, as I've been told, and I've seen it, we always say it's a copycat league. So if
Yeah.
somebody starts off
I
the
guess that
year,
was my question.
yeah, if somebody starts off the year blazing with this like great
Mm.
new or updated thing, you can best believe by like 3 or 4, you're going to see 2 or 3 other teams doing it. So
Mm.
I was always told that you have to look at changing the way you do things usually every 3 years. Like if you have a
Mm.
God willing, you're on a staff and you're in a organization for 4 years. Year 3, if you're not looking to like really overhaul or really update, people are
Mm.
on to you. People know how to scheme for you. People know what you're going to do when you're in this alignment or put these players in certain positions. So you kind of have to look for ways to make it fresh, to
Mm.
be effective, because NFL is production based, and winning
Yeah.
winning keeps you there, hopefully. And you got to do what you can within the system to
Mm.
win and make it new as much as possible.
I love that. I feel it, just to learn the playbook seems like not a trivial task. I mean, these things
Yeah.
are, I mean, I've seen they're utterly enormous, right?
Mhm.
So how does that play in? You're at the combine, you're
Mhm.
going to be bringing in a new class. How do you, how do you know whether or not someone's going to be capable of learning and executing your playbook?
Sure. I don't know that anybody's really 100% sure of that
Mm.
up front. I mean, those kids have so much on their shoulders when they're
Yeah.
there. They have to perform physically. They have to always be
Mm.
on. They have to have
Mhm.
this meeting. They have to do this interview. And I think I think what gets missed sometimes, and I've been very appreciative of being around staffs that do take the extra step. But when those kids come in the door, they not only have to learn the playbook, like you said, but they have to navigate now being a professional football player and living on their own, or being responsible sometimes for things that they had a lot of other people around them in college that just took care of everything for them, or
Yeah.
family, and and rightly so. So their transition has to be really quickly figuring out, how do you learn? Are you a visual
Mm.
learner? Do we need to sit and spend like an extra half an hour with you, like in classroom? Do you need to
Mm.
come in and like go through stuff like, walkthroughs, pre-practice, so that you get like the repetitions with it? Like, how is it going to be best for you? And then we also depend on a lot of the veteran players to kind of help us
Mm.
bridge that from, what the coaches are saying. And then as a player, this is how I do it.
Mm.
This, you're in my position, there's, going to be some competition, obviously, but we all know that the more that room or that unit operates together, the
Mm.
better off we'll be down the line. So it's just a combination effort of getting player engagement involved, so they get that stuff
Mm.
knocked out, getting the classroom done with the coaches, getting the reps done with the coaches, memory tricks, like whatever it is,
Mm.
whatever they need. But we have to bring them up to speed, because you just never know when they may have to rise to that occasion, and you got to put them in. So you have to be as confident as possible in their ability to not only learn it but retain it when the bullets are flying. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot for them when they first walk in the door.
Who gave you the shot?
Hmm.
Like it's, to be one of the very first women in the NFL, not a lot of women know football, understand football, let alone have played football.
Right.
It's just so uncommon, so I just how did you
Yeah.
you make it to the NFL? It's just
Yeah. I mean,
wild.
when I look back on it, it is pretty wild. I've always loved football, from the time I
Mm.
was like a little kid, and played it in the backyard when I was growing up with the neighborhood kids and whatever.
Yeah.
We were all different players from our favorite teams. The Harrisburg area in Pennsylvania is where I grew up, but when I was about 40, they had a women's team for the first time come to the area. So I don't know what
Mm.
I was thinking that day, but went over, and that ended in a good 4-year career playing semi-pro, and my kids were little, so I was working full time. I was a
Wow.
part-time personal trainer, and my younger son was playing youth ball at the time, and there was a husband and wife that I would always sit close to in the bleachers because all the parents would stay. And I had known the guy since he was a little kid because he was a cousin of one of my friends, but he was the head football coach at Susquehanna, which is my alma mater, and where I ended up there for so many years. But I would just sit and talk to them, and we would talk a little bit, and every once in a while there would be something come up about football and I would make a comment, and he was like, "How do you know that?" I'm like, "Well, because this, that, and the other." So he invited me to work the team out for their summer workouts. It was 5:30 in the morning. I used to go over before I would go to work. Absolutely killed them. They hated me. They hated seeing me come in. I went to one of the practices one night and he's like, "Hey, why don't you go shadow the defensive line coach?" And I was like, "Really? Like on the field?" And he's like, "Yeah, come on down." So that's how it started. It was very
It's
organic.
awesome.
And I talk a lot to, like, with women or anybody coming into anything, I try and tell them, like, the relationships that you build have to be authentic and organic. It can't be transactional. Like, I never sat next to Joe because I wanted a job. I sat next to him and his wife Susie because they were good people and I enjoyed their company, and it just kind of all fell in line just based on conversation. But I would have never, like, gone to him and said, "Hey, this is what I can do and this is what I wanna do, and, help me." But he was the one, and he set a tone immediately that I was like any other coach on the field, not only to
Mm,
the other coaches, but to the kids, and I never had a problem. I never didn't feel as though I couldn't ask a question. I did everything that I could to work harder than any of the other volunteers that were there because I appreciated the opportunity to be there so much and to learn.
mm,
And that then was like a 9-year proposition. And then they finally got rid of me. No, they've all stayed in touch. They've all been great supporters the whole time. But yeah, it was an amazing sort of think tank that I got to be a part
mm,
of with minimal investment of me other than my time and effort.
mm.
So yeah, Joe would have been the one that started the ball rolling for me.
That's amazing. And would you say, do you have kind of an unusual football IQ? I would have to think that just being a woman, potentially like you're you're looking at the game potentially a little bit different, like how you interact with the players maybe is different. Like I imagine all of those things are a positive on a team. We know that diversity on teams is
Sure.
the way to improve performance of a team. So
Yeah.
it's not surprising that you've been able to integrate so well, and it's been so beneficial for the teams that you've been a part of. But maybe just explain kind of that dynamic a little bit, and what your perception has been of your role in these kind of all male environments.
Yeah. I mean, I think that obviously every coach has their own style, right? And I think that again, that speaks back to authenticity. I never
Mm.
tried to emulate the guys, although I'm doing a much better job of not swearing as much as I used to. Uh, I could hang in there with the best of them. Trust me.
Mm,
I've always been an assistant coach, and I'm more than okay with that. But what was great was when I was in positions with other coaches where I was their second set of eyes. So if they were
mm,
looking at one thing, maybe I was more geared towards the fundamental piece because like you said, there's so much to learn in a game that we don't get to play as women
mhm,
usually since the time we've been 6 years old, right? Like
mhm,
guys have this incredible path that's so organic and laid out. Like they don't even think about it. We have to put the work in for it
mhm,
because it's not the norm. It's not something that we sit around on Sunday afternoons, at brunch and discuss. It's just
mm,
it's different. But I think it's like anything that you really have a passion for, like you put the time and effort in to get to know it or get to know like just like a new job. Like there have
mm,
been times when I worked in corporate where I felt like so over acronymed that it took me, forever to understand when people talk in acronyms. So it was basically that same type of approach that I took with football. I always tell my sons that you can only eat the elephant one bite at a time. So I kind of stayed within the realm of what I understood, what my position group was supposed to be doing, what my position coach was covering with them. And those are the things I focused on as opposed to trying to learn everything. I've been very fortunate now over the last couple of years to have been exposed more to coverage and secondary, which I had
Mm,
stayed away from for the longest time. But that's just making me better as a coach and making me understand
mm,
the game on another level. And I'm finding myself in a position again, so I really need to put the time and effort in because now that's that new aspect that I need to be able
mm,
to master
mhm,
to keep employed or to keep
mhm,
working or to be advanced or wherever this path takes me next. But I think it's just all about effort and commitment to something. If you want it
mm,
and you want to be successful, you have to put the time in.
Yeah. When did you so you're with the Ravens prior to the Bucks, right?
Mhm.
How did the opportunity with the Ravens, like, transpire and kind of what were some of the learnings there? And then if you can talk a little bit about your transition to the Bucks and what that phone call was like,
Oh
how
yeah,
did that happen?
yeah. Every year since 2017, there's been a women's career forum that the NFL's
mm,
put on. I've been fortunate to be invited every year. Now more so obviously as a speaker because of being in the league. But in 18, I was there and Callie Brownson was there, now with Cleveland. Jennifer King was there, obviously now with Chicago. And there was only about 15 of us that were coaches within that track. And what it does is it allows you to be put in front of head coaches and front office personnel, GMs, owners, and have FaceTime with them and ask them questions because again, just like the players that are coming in for the draft, like you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what the
mm,
building's going to be like. You don't know what the demands of the job are. So I think that that type of experience helped to kind of wipe away some of the uncertainty. And then, like every year, we all applied for the Bill Walsh Diversity Fellowship. And I was fortunate enough that Baltimore picked me up for that. And that's how I was able to intern with them.
Nice.
And that defensive line coach, Joe Cullen, has been, again, one of my biggest mentors. He's been with Kansas City the last couple of years. So he's been very successful in what he does. But Joe was the same. He was inclusive. And that room was insane, talent wise.
mm,
It was Terrell Suggs, future Hall of Famer. It was Zadarius Smith. It was Michael Pierce. I mean, the Pat Ricard, like those guys in that room, the level of talent that they allowed me to be around, as well as the
mm,
coaching staff, was insane. And I was very fortunate enough too to be able to develop relationships with those guys that still continue. And we still, stay in touch. And it's just something where again, I think that having the ability to have other people see again that your intention is to become better. Your intention's not
mm,
there because of the media. Your attention's not there to be, look at me, look at me, look at me. Like I couldn't care less if they did or, they didn't. But Coach Harbaugh has been an amazing supporter too. And
mm,
he really went out of his way to make sure that, things were set up the correct way and very approachable. Again, he's one of the greatest guys, let alone coaches, let alone fathers that I've ever met.
mm,
And he's always been such a nice, supportive piece of my journey. But yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better start to be
yeah.
there with them. My full time job at that time, before I went to Baltimore, fired me 2 weeks before I took the internship. And it was,
Whoa.
yeah, it was really, it was difficult because my younger son was in college at Penn State. My older son had already moved to California. He had gone to grad school and stayed out there. So I'm looking at no benefits, no salary, and I'm leaving. Well, I was asked to leave my full time job because they just, they weren't going to hold it, obviously, for me to be gone 6 weeks. So I really struggled with that going into it. But I thought if I don't try this now, I'm going to regret it. So let me
Mm,
go do this. And when I come back, If I can't find full-time work in football, I'll go back to doing what I know. I'll go back to find a corporate job.
Mm-hmm.
I'll work two jobs. Like, I'll make it up.
Mm-hmm.
And coming back from that internship was difficult because you get a taste of everything that you know that now you want, and you get to see
Yeah.
it behind the scenes. And then it's like this
Mm-hmm.
high, and that's like nothing,
Mm.
like dropping off. So I worked at a pet food factory, and I walked dogs, and I did whatever I could to, make the money to take care of my son and pay my bills. And it was right about then November. So I did that for about 3 months, that I got a call for the AAF to go to Birmingham and pick that up. And then I had been at Temple forever ago. My ex husband was a player there at the time that Bruce Arians was the coach. And I
Mm-hmm.
had met BA in passing, but I also knew Andrew's, my ex husband, Andrew's teammates, Todd Bowles, Kevin Ross, Keith Armstrong, Nick Rapone was his position coach. All of those guys were on the Buccaneers staff at that time,
Mm-hmm.
under BA as a coach. And there was a coaching clinic, and somebody had said, listen, BA's in town. He's committed to hiring a woman, full time for next year. And I was like, yeah, but I can't leave. I mean, I can't like leave my job here and go try and find BA. And Joe Pendry, who was our GM in Birmingham and has been in the league forever and ever. I didn't know it at the time, but Joe was speaking to BA on my behalf, telling him he should talk to me about the position, which, again, you talk about like a break. I never
Wow.
asked Joe to do that. And it was huge. So I did. I got BA's email. Katie Sowers at the time, who was in the league, actually got me his email. And I sent my resume to him and put in the subject line, 36 years later, I'd love to work for you, and send him
Mm.
my information. And, we talk about the value of relationships. You
Yeah.
never think that 36 years later, you're going to have to roll back to something, that you, in passing, he knew who I was, he knew the guys,
Mm.
but that's how I got the call from BA. And we talked for about 10 minutes, and he invited me to come down and work. And I drove down from Birmingham. And, timing's everything too, because I think I left on a Friday, and that following Tuesday, the league
Mm.
folded. So it was truly like the planets aligning to get me to Tampa at that
Wow.
time. And I had 4 great years there, and Super Bowl win, and, have a house here now. And it's been a blessing.
It's incredible. I mean, Super Bowl.
And Super Bowl win.
I
Yeah.
mean, let alone, getting to coach in a professional league like that in of itself, but then actually to win the whole
Yeah.
thing is,
Yeah.
it's
Pretty
just,
unreal.
yeah, very few people get to experience that. So, and it just sounds, everyone I've talked to, Lori, just speaks so highly of you. And it's clear that these opportunities, it seems clear to me that these opportunities have come about just because you're a really good human and you've treated people well along the way. And I think that you deserve everything that you've got,
Thank
because,
you. That means
and
a lot.
because your skills and your knowledge and your expertise. And I think too, like, it strikes me just you're willingness to take risks. It's to just back yourself in that way and kind of go for that internship when you
Hmm.
knew there's a lot at stake and you have
Hmm.
a family to support. Like I just, I always go back to this idea that, when you're living your values and you're really clear about how you want to think, what you want to be thinking about and what you love to think about and when you pursue those opportunities, like usually good things happen, because you said it earlier, like there's an authenticity, that comes with that people can feel. And I think people gravitate to that and appreciate that and want to honor that. And and I think you're a great example of people actually are more inclined to help,
Yeah.
when they feel that. So
Yeah.
yeah, just kudos to you for making all that happen. So you go to the Bucks, like tell me about how do you integrate
Mhm.
into the staff? You've got all these, I mean, there's just how many staff are there? So when we're talking about,
It's a
position
lot.
coaches. Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
like and then you've got the performance coaches, strength and conditioning,
Yeah.
medicine, athletic medicine, director of performance who's kind of keeping it all together. Like, maybe just give us a rundown of like just how many people are kind of plugged into this like system.
Yeah. A lot. I
Yeah.
think
I mean,
BA
it's in the
has
hundreds, right? It's like a hundred
um,
something, right?
it would have to be honest with you,
Yeah.
because I know BA, there was I think we were the largest coaching staff when I got there. And I will say, obviously, it was probably a little bit easier for me going there because I knew those guys from college. I mean,
Mm,
we had been friends or, really close at that time, and they made it easy. They walked me around the building, they would introduce me to people. And again, it's just like any new job. Like, I tried to get to know people's names. I tried to
mm,
always understand like what each and every person did, because like you said, it takes, and again, I don't think people understand how many people it
mm,
takes to get that team on the field and in great shape and in the right
yeah.
equipment and healthy
Mhm,
and everything, like on a weekly basis, or to even transport them there.
mhm,
But yeah, it takes time, and everybody's like very like willing to like talk to you and explain what they
mm,
do, and you get a chance then, because football and I'm sure field hockey was probably like this too, but every day is like the same. Like a
mm,
football Monday in 17 weeks will still be a football Monday and a football
mm,
Tuesday. And, there are just certain things that you do on every like specified day of the week.
mm,
So then we knew that there would be times when we would encounter or we would overlap other sort of departments
mhm,
based on what football day it was. So that gave you an opportunity to develop those relationships within the building as well, because you had those brief bits of overlap or pre-practice, or if somebody was injured or you needed additional information, it just became like this routine meshing. So that helped. But yeah, I mean, I did my best to get to know everybody that was
mhm.
there. And I think that that was a big eye opener in Baltimore too, was just how many people are behind the scenes,
Yeah,
that you don't ever see, you'll probably never see,
right.
but they're so important to the
Mhm.
team and getting them out there for the best product that that team can put on the field.
Yeah, I think people probably don't realize, like, how much complexity there really is,
Yeah.
and just from a organizational standpoint and, like, it's just how processes like, there's so much procedure and yeah, it's,
Yeah.
like, really quite impressive. So you were there 2 years prior to when Brady arrived, right? Is
Well,
that
I was
right?
there in 19. So we had 19 with
Okay, so
James, and
19
then TB came
came
in
in and
20. Yep.
in
Yep.
20, okay, so what was that moment? As a New England girl, I gotta ask, what was that like for Tom Brady coming in?
It was everything that you would have expected it to be.
Okay.
It was,
The
and
dialed, intense, like, the whole 9 yards?
yeah,
Yeah.
yes and no. So it was, I think it was, and I'll say that this is my opinion because I don't want to,
Course.
obviously,
Yeah.
but in 19, I thought that we had a lot of talent in the building, but we just didn't put it together
Mm,
consistently enough to have the season that we all wanted.
mm,
And you just, you look back and, obviously there was different leadership, on the field at that point in time.
mhm.
So then when Tom came in, obviously we were like, this, you hear the news and we're like, "Pfft, that's a rumor. That's not
Yeah.
happening.
It's not gonna
Like,
happen.
come on, man. Like that's
Yeah.
the most far-fetched thing. However, he could not have been nicer. He couldn't have been
Mm,
more professional. He couldn't have
mm,
been more approachable. He was the consummate, like just professional. But again, my opinion only, it felt like that entire building just took a deep breath and lifted
mm,
the moment he walked in. And it wasn't even that he did anything huge. He wasn't
mm,
demonstrative, you know what I mean? Like he
mm,
wasn't, all rah rah or whatever. His
mm,
presence alone And the example that he set because of the way he approached the game, the way he prepared, the way he held himself to such a high standard, the way that he, talked to the other guys, like it was a leadership that is unparalleled, and they
Mm.
rose to it on both
Mm.
sides of the ball. Because
Wow.
now it's kind of like, we didn't in 19, we didn't really have a
Mm.
point of reference what it was like to win consistently.
Mm.
Now you have somebody who's not used to losing.
Yeah.
His attitude, his mindset, like it was
Mm.
just like totally opposite. And the guys just rose to it, and they started to collectively play to the potential that we always
Mm.
knew was there. But Tom was the catalyst, in my opinion. Tom was a catalyst for it. And it just hit, everything just hit all at the right time when he was there, to have all of our right pieces in place. Like the defensive side of the ball was incredible at that point. Like the front seven was just a nightmare for any team to have to scheme for it. And now we had an
Mm.
offense that matched and or surpassed what the defense can do. That's a tough
Right.
combination to
Yeah.
beat.
To beat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's up, folks? If you are enjoying this podcast or if you care about health, performance, fitness, you may really enjoy getting a Whoop. That's right. You can check out Whoop at whoop.com. It measures everything around sleep, recovery, strain, and you can now sign up for free for 30 days. So you'll literally get the high performance wearable in the mail for free. You get to try it for 30 days, see whether you want to be a member. And that is just at whoop.com. Back to the guests.
So you're at the Super Bowl and you've got Andy Reid, who's just like an absolute mastermind, right? Especially from the
Absolutely.
offensive side. But what was it like just preparing for that game? And then during the game, it was such a dominant effort. Like what was like going through your mind?
Not a whole lot. No, it was different too because we were playing at home, and
Mm,
it was COVID. And so like
that's right.
all of the swirling, distractions that would probably normally be in place for a Super Bowl really weren't there. And it's odd to say, I just talked about it with MJ. We had a chance to have dinner with some friends at the combine, and it was so calm in that building for those 2 weeks leading into it. And I think the thing that sticks out to me the most is that anytime anybody would talk about the game, it was never if we were going to win, it was when we win. And
Mm,
it was a, I don't know why, you know what I mean, but we just had that confidence. We had played Kansas City earlier that season, and they came out and like just were smoking us early. I mean, I think they had like 200 yards passing in the first half. But then the
jeez.
adjustments that were made in the third quarter and the fourth quarter shut them down entirely. And so we kind of knew that we knew now how to play them. And like you said
Mm,
earlier, like we had a plan in place for Mahomes that I think nobody saw coming,
well,
because it was different than what would have been anticipated for us
mm,
to play him. And um, during my time in Tampa, I was always up in the booth, and you're so locked into the things that you have to do. And I mean,
yeah.
I was writing down the calls as they would come in. I was trying to track other things. Obviously, most of the guys had a lot of other stuff on their plates, but it wasn't really until the third quarter was just ending that we all kind of realized that they had not scored a touchdown yet. But we're like, we're
Mm,
going into the fourth quarter. This is Patrick Mahomes. Like, I mean, nobody can, this isn't gonna happen. But
mm.
it was insanity to see that final seconds like click off, to see that score, and to understand what we did at home. Yeah, there was nothing
Just
like
what?
it.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
It's incredible. What is it about your would you say about your coaching style? Or if someone were to describe your coaching style, how would they describe you with your
Hmm.
players?
Yeah, I mean, they know that I care a lot.
Mm,
They know that I'm very fundamentally based. I don't have a lot of patience if they're not fundamentally sound, or if we're
mm,
correcting the same,
Mm,
fundamental things over and over. If we're going to coach, if I'm going to coach, let me coach you on something new as opposed to the stuff that you already should know and already have down pat.
mm,
We shouldn't have to have, the same error repeating. I think that that was a really good step in for me in Tennessee because Coach Vrabel had that mentality. Like, it's okay to make a mistake. And I've coached with other coaches where it's not okay to make a mistake, but he wanted
mm,
them to continually try to do things that we were asking. And I felt like that created an environment that the guys were willing to play and willing to like play a little bit harder because they weren't as afraid of making a mistake
mm,
as they would be to not execute a play. So again, I mean, I've kind of softened on the language a little bit, but I'm tough when I need to be,
mm,
loud when I need to be, but I really want to form a connection with each player so that they understand that if I'm asking them to do something, that we need to do it. And if I'm
mm,
asking them to go, a little bit beyond, it's because we need them. And I believe that they're able
mm,
to do it. So that's why I'm asking you. I always tell them like it's the biggest compliment when a coach is coaching you. It's when they leave you alone that you need to
mhm.
worry. So
Yeah.
make sure that, we always have that understanding. Like if I'm coaching you, it's because I know you can do it and I know that, you have the capacity to do it. If I'm
Mm,
letting you go, you might not be where you think you are, and we need to have a separate conversation. But I try and be as straightforward as I can. I don't sugarcoat much, and to hear me talk, I think sometimes it's going to sound like everybody else. I just come at it maybe from a different perspective, and we
mm.
get the job done that way.
I love that. When you look back on seasons and you kind of like, all right, yeah, that was successful. Like, how do you define success for you?
For me personally, is if the players do well.
Mm,
There's certain accolades, there's certain levels of recognition that you
hmm.
definitely want your players to achieve. And if they've been successful, and I mean, again, it's the league, right? If they have
Yeah.
incentives, that, we've done everything that we can to have them hit those incentives and hit their personal goals. Maybe it's, a rookie who now understands everything within the system or got playing time at
Hmm.
the end of the year because they were able to have that extra time, and now they're on to a new phase or sometimes a new team, but they're better prepared to be successful in their
Hmm.
careers. And I think anything that I would view as a success would have to be, where are the players that I've had a touch with? Where are they
Hmm.
now? And if they're further down the line in their career, if they've been successful, or I feel as though that I was able to make some type of impact to help get them there. I mean, that's all I can really ask for. I think that's success as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. It's amazing. You are, clearly a part of a very elite group of women, who are coaching in the NFL right now.
Mhm.
What do you say to people? I read the comments and, you know, people say like, "Oh, they're just ticking a box, hiring a woman." How do you respond to that? How do the people in your organization respond to that? I just think people need to develop some language around, how people are actually thinking about it.
Yeah. I try not to read the comments anymore because I feel like everybody has an opinion that, is based on their own point of reference, and it's
Hmm.
not my experience, and hopefully it's not the experience of the people that are investing time and effort in, putting me on a staff somewhere. And I think that, it's difficult because like you said, there are so few of us, so we're easy targets when it comes
Hmm.
to some small mindedness in regards to, how coaches should look or coaches should be or the packaging that goes around being a coach. But, I feel like I've tried to make more of an effort to just leave the noise behind me because at the end of the day, it's kind of all it is. Like I've got a job to do, and while I'm here, I'm going to do it. If I'm not
Hmm.
here, somebody else will do it. I mean, that's just the league.
Hmm.
When I was in the group that got fired, I had so many guys call me and tell me, "Well, now you're a real coach because you're not a real coach until you get fired." Because they always said, there's
It's
two
funny.
kinds of coaches. There's the coaches that are waiting to get hired and the ones that are about to be fired. So
Mm,
it's just how this profession is. Like, I've got so many other things to kind of worry about and focus on that, having, the discussion with anybody who feels like, a check mark in a box is probably the
mm,
lowest priority that I could place on any of it. And if,
100%.
if that's how they choose to be, fine, so be it. Buy a
Hmm.
ticket. I'll see you on Sunday. I just
Yeah.
don't have any time for it.
Yeah. It's perfect. We met through the Female Coaches Network,
Yes.
which I've become, yeah, a really passionate supporter of. Doing great work trying to understand, why is it that, women leave professional sports at greater rates than men
Sure.
do, right? There's higher levels of burnout for women than there are for men. And, this is a group, a network that's trying to actively support women who are coaching at professional and
Mhm.
international levels. And
Yeah.
so I love that mission. What are some of the barriers that you see with women? Of course, you're professional, and then also in a male dominated sport. So you've got kind of coming at you from all sides. But yeah, what would be your perspective on how do we keep women in high level coaching positions?
Yeah. So a couple of things. I always say male prevalent because
Mm,
I don't like to give power to the dominant
yeah, words
aspect of
matter.
it.
That's
Yes,
yeah,
I'm in the
perfect.
male
Yeah,
prevalent
teach us.
profession.
Yeah, I love that.
I think one of the things that the forum did, and even one of the things that Vicky tries to do through the Female Coaches Network, is you take away the feeling of isolation in
Mm,
a profession where you don't see yourself often. And until the forum, being in Pennsylvania, I mean, in high school, doing the semi pro games, doing the arena games, like I didn't see myself ever. There
mm,
was, clinics, that all the football coaches go to for the high school thing. I went to
mhm,
one in Baltimore, and they had all of the conference sessions were on the second floor. Well, because it's mostly men, they took over the women's bathroom and made it a men's bathroom also. So, I had to run to the first floor to go pee like during
mm,
sessions. And it was like, they don't do that anymore. But
mm,
it's not because there's throngs of women coming in, but there's enough now that, they're making the concession like, oh, now we have to recognize the fact that there are other people that are starting to coach this sport or have a passion for this sport. And I
mm,
think that internationally, I think that I've seen some of Vicky's articles, and I think that there's more
mm,
of a challenge, maybe, and in different sports too, that are slower to respond to the availability of having women come in and have the opportunities to do it. But I've always said that, I don't want to be a role model because to me, role model always insinuated that you're going to emulate everything I've done. You're going to do everything that I did. You're going to follow, the path I did. You're going to go the same places I went. You're going to handle things the same way. I don't want that for anybody. I want to be able to be a possibility model for young women or women. I mean, I pivoted to this late in my career. And, shout out to Laverne Cox on the term possibility model. But I mean, I want to make it known that it's possible. It's not easy, it's not for everybody. And I think that, I was at a place in my life where my kids were older, where, again, I had no job. So it was either two toes off the cliff or, step back away from it. But I feel like that there's a lot of societal things sometimes that hold women back from being able to commit to it the same way our male colleagues are able to commit to a sport with like no strings attached. Because most of the guys that I coach with have been married for forever, have wonderful women, that are the mothers of their children and their wives that take care of their home, they take care of the kids, they
mhm.
take care of the moving, they take care of everything. Well, guess
Yeah,
what? I do both,
yeah,
and that's not,
100%.
yeah, it's just not easy and it's not for
Mhm,
everybody. And you really have to understand personally what you're willing to accept and what your tolerance level is. Is it lack of sleep? Is it really a lack of, money? Is it a lack of
Mhm.
quality family time? Like, what are you willing to do? And I think that right now, with women's sports, rising so, quickly,
Mhm.
and the viewership is up, I think that, maybe there'll be a little less pressure in the next couple of years for us to have to take on everything. But I think that until there are opportunities in that woman's life to be able to say, I don't feel bad about trying to follow something that I know will make me happy, or follow a passion that I've always had, until we can carve that back away out of like a
Mhm.
woman's psyche, we just don't have the numbers to kind of build that candidate pool. Like I
Mhm.
said earlier, like, guys have been playing football since they've been 6. They
Yeah.
go through high school, they go through college, they can
Mhm.
say, "Oh, your dad coached me at junior college." Or,
Mhm.
Kristen, you and I, we were teammates, back in
Mhm.
high school, and, I GA'd on your dad's team. Like, we don't have that. So with the very small number now of us that are in the league, it's almost like we're trying to build a framework or a career path backwards.
Mhm.
And you can talk about sending the elevator back down, but I don't feel it's even that, because there's this like disconnect of development where women that are out there now have done it on their own, and it's like, now how do we grab them, continue their development, continue their career pathing, so that they're at least on the same level as their male counterparts as they come forward. And then
Mhm.
that's what the forum's been able to do, is really identify women that are already now working at the college level, and trying to put them a little bit closer each year to the people that make the decisions, to at least bring them in and give them a
Mhm.
shot, just like I had, just like Jen and Callie and Katie and Angela Baker in New York, like, that
Mhm.
we've all had. And, if it's a fit, it's a fit. If it's not, we just kind of keep trying.
Mhm. I love possibility model. That's awesome. I've never heard
Hmm.
that before.
Yeah.
That's a great way of framing it. Do you feel optimistic about the future of women in the National Football League?
It's hard to say, because of not really seeing numbers in the coaching ranks, that I'd like to see. I mean, we have a ton
Yeah.
of young women that want to do scouting, ton of young
Mhm.
women that want to do the operations part, the
Mhm.
player, personnel engagement, all that.
Yep.
Coaching, it's still really thin. And if
Yeah.
if we're going to make an impact, you have to have the experience. You have to be
Yeah.
able to work your way up. You have to be able to put the time and the sweat equity into it.
Yeah.
And until we get, again, like a good, solid, numerous
Mm.
candidate pool, it's going to be tricky. I think it'll be slow
Yeah.
going, but I think it's, the doors cracked open. We just have to have
Mhm.
the women who are really committed to that process be able to kind of push themselves to the top.
Yeah. One thing I hope our listeners take away from this conversation is that, you didn't get on this track until you were 40. Like, that is, like, insane to me and amazing, and so freaking inspiring. And I
Mm.
hope people just recognize that it's like the dream is never dead,
Right.
and I just love how it all evolved for you. It's just really super inspiring, and a possibility model is, yeah, it's right there in front of us, and
Appreciate
I
it.
hope, yeah, I hope moms and dads who listen to this share this with their kids, and think about the opportunities that they have for themselves, and whether or not they're kind of living their purpose and their mission, and whether or not the things that they're doing from a day-to-day basis are an outlet, for the things
Sure.
that they say they care about and want to think about. And so when you think about, like, 5 years from now, where do you see yourself?
I'd like to
Hmm.
say still employed with the
Okay, good.
NFL.
Yeah. Still working.
That would be good.
Yeah.
But no, I think, obviously it would be nice to have the ability to have my own room within a team. And, we'll see how that all plays out. But, I love being around the game. I love being part of the organization right now. And, just want to continue to contribute. I'd love to have another Super Bowl ring
Heck
to
yeah.
add to the collection. But yeah, I mean, who knows? I try and Jen King always says, you be where your feet are. I'm trying to be the best defensive assistant / quality control coach that I can be right now in Tennessee, and be a contributing member of staff here, and we'll take it from there. But yeah, always employed is definitely a goal.
Amazing. Is there anything specific that you're just obsessing over at the moment? It can be anything.
Ugh, trying to
I
get
know you're trying to recover from surgery.
right.
So that's a big
Pretty
one.
much it. That's pretty much it right now, just getting that mobility back. I was asked the other day about like work-life balance, and
Mm,
because my younger son's still in Tampa, and the dog, and my older son is out in California. When I'm in Tennessee, just trying to stay connected to them because they're my grounding source. And
yeah.
I've been really trying to put a lot of time and effort. I kind of got away from it during season, but I always like to spend like the first 20 minutes of the morning and the last 20 minutes of every night, sort of like in meditation and self-reflection,
Mm, yeah.
just to sort of like get that calm voice, and sort of just kind of bolster where my faith is at, and
Mm,
kind of like settle me down, and or like just get me ready for the day. So just being a little bit more
mm,
consistent with that. I'd say just other than trying to learn the new playbook is probably like the biggest obsession that I have right now.
yeah. I love it. Yeah, those are beautiful bookends, to the
Hmm.
day. And
Yep, no
that's,
doubt.
yeah, I think probably really good advice for anyone who's trying to feel a bit more centered, a bit more
Hmm.
grounded in the things that matter,
Yep.
is carving out that time to reflect. I think is really important for human thriving, for sure. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, Lori. I know you're in the thick of things, so I'll
Yeah.
let you go here. But you are truly inspirational, and just appreciate everything that you've done to kind of push us into new territory. And yeah, just as a mom of a daughter who is excited to do really hard things in her life, I appreciate what you've done, for all of us.
I
So
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you so much. And just so you know, because we didn't really talk about it, but I want to thank you for Whoop, because when
Yeah.
my younger son was having some undiagnosed health issues, it was extremely valuable to track his heart rate and give data back to his doctors,
Oh gosh.
regarding his heart rate, his pulse. Like it's just he's had one for 3 years ish. Um,
Wow.
Terrible, like kids that like have to wake up in the morning solely depends on that wrist vibration. Like it's just all the things that made sense to him, but then also became a health benefit and a tracking device, especially when I wasn't here. So I
Wow.
want to thank you, and have you understand that sometimes even it may not obviously be like the direct purpose of it, but from a family standpoint for us, it was invaluable to be able to track that and get to his doctor when things started to get out of kilter. So I want to make sure that you understand
Wow.
how much we value what you do and the technology behind it, because it probably saved him a couple of times. And again, when I
Gosh.
wasn't here. So thank you for
Wow,
that.
Lori. Well, I hope he's on a better path. I'm so sorry that your family had to go through whatever it was, but glad that was helpful, and
Yeah.
that's amazing to hear.
Thank you.
I
I
know.
really enjoyed speaking with you and meeting you, and everybody's been great.
Yeah.
So just thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be thinking about you, and can't
Thank
wait
you.
if I'm down in Tennessee, which I'm
Please.
sure I will be. Yeah, this fall for sure. I
Absolutely.
will. Yeah, I'll definitely hit you up, even though I know you'll be really busy. But I'll just say hi.
That's all right. That's okay, Kristen. Always time for you. I really appreciate it.
All right, Lori. Well, reach out if you ever need anything. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks to Coach Lowe for sharing her story and her path to becoming the first woman on an NFL coaching staff to win a Super Bowl. Once again, be on the lookout for our spring sale starting Monday, April 15th for 10% off Whoop memberships. If If you enjoyed this episode of the Whoop Podcast, please leave a rating or review. Please subscribe to the Whoop Podcast. You can check us out on social at Whoop, at Will Ahmed. If you have a question you want to see answered on the podcast, email us, podcast@whoop.com. Call us, 508-443-4952. Reminder, you can join Whoop for free for 30 days. Get the full Whoop experience. That's whoop.com. New members can use the code WILL, W-I-L-L, get a $60 credit on Whoop accessories. And that's a wrap, folks. Thank you all for listening. We'll catch you next week on the Whoop Podcast. As always, stay healthy and stay in the green.